Hello everybody and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome home everybody. If you find that you just have nobody that'll listen to you talk about movies and it just makes you really sad in life, well, don't worry. You could say thank you right now because you no longer have that problem because we're all here talking about movies because nobody else will listen to us, okay? So welcome back at ZakIsCinema. Today we are going to be reviewing and discussing the movie VHS 2, which came out in 2013. So as we jump into the review and discussion for the second VHS movie, obviously on the channel here, we have made it a ZakIsCinema community goal that we are going to be covering and discussing the entire VHS franchise the entire month of October. So if you like VHS, like found footage, please join us here. I had such a blast with the newest VHS movie, VHS Halloween. So I'd never seen the entire franchise before, so I kind of wanted to go through it here on the channel, covering every single one, and if we have time, we will be covering the spin-offs and then doing some rankings at the end out towards Halloween. So look forward to all those reviews and discussions coming pretty shortly here. But these VHS movies, we're going to be doing something a little bit different on the channel. Instead of doing a review of the whole movie, it's a little difficult just given its anthology kind of layout. So we are basically going to be doing a mini review for each and every short, including the frame narrative at the end. So a bunch of mini reviews, and then I'm also doing something different with my rating system for the VHS franchise, where at the end of the review for each short, I'm going to be having some sort of point system. So I'm going to give it a 0 points if it just did not work for me. I don't like this one. I don't recommend it. About a half point if I'm kind of mixed on the experience, and then 1 point if I had a really good time with the short and fully recommend it here. And then we're going to be averaging them out at the end, so you get my final score in a percentage form. So let's get started with the review and discussion, starting with the first short in this movie called Phase 1 Clinical Trials, directed by Adam Wingard. A man with a cybernetic eye implant begins seeing ghosts and strange apparitions in his home, and as visions worsen, he tries to get rid of the implant with terrifying results. Now, right off the bat, I do enjoy this horror short when it goes for more of that horror, sci-fi kind of edge. I praised a lot of what they did in the first VHS movie with that, I forget what it's called, but like the what happened to Emily when she was younger, how it introduced this kind of sci-fi concept into the VHS franchise. And I love horror, I love sci-fi, so this one I definitely enjoyed that initial setup of it going for that more horror and sci-fi kind of edge. It almost felt like a Black Mirror episode in the VHS franchise, or that was kind of the tone and vibe they were going for. So I do like that initial setup, and I do really enjoy that initial setup of how we get the found footage kind of angle to this short, since we're literally following somebody that just had a eye transplant after an accident, and he's getting tested with this new recording technology in his eyes. So instead of someone holding a camera, we literally get a constant POV shot from our main character here, since his eye is now replaced with a eye version of a camera. So I do enjoy that perspective. It just introduces a little unique twist into its traditional found footage kind of setting here. So again, kind of sticking with that Black Mirror vibe, kind of reminiscent of, I think, in the first season with that lawyer episode in Black Mirror. That's what it kind of reminded me of. Very, very different, but that was kind of the vibe with the camera angle that I did enjoy here. I do like how in this one they kind of introduced that, or tiptoe around that unreliable narrator side, which I enjoyed in that first VHS movie with that Emily one. And in this one, we get a guy with a robot eye, and he starts seeing these ghosts and demons and these people show up into his home, and he has no idea what's going on. But it kind of introduces that unreliable narrator where you're not sure if this guy is just messed up in the head and actually thinking that he's seeing these things, or if he's seeing them because of the robot eye. So throughout the short, we're pretty certain, like, they don't try to hide what exactly is going on, but I like how they kind of tiptoe around, well, what exactly is going on? How exactly is he seeing these things? Even though you're pretty sure it's the robot eye, they still do throw in some questioning in there, which I do enjoy. However, unfortunately, besides its initial setup and its concept and its unique found footage angle to it, I do think as the short goes on, it gets a bit goofy and a bit cheesy, especially when they introduce that random girl that our main character saw in the beginning at the doctor's office that was just kind of staring at him. You kind of figured she'd come back in, but she just comes knocking on the door and comes in like they're best friends or something, and starts literally lore dumping, just exposition vomiting all over our character for the entire screen time she is in this short for, just explaining that she got a cochlear implant or something, so now she can hear things and has been hearing things that people can't see or hear, and now that this guy's got the eye thing, he can now see things. So immediately when that character comes back into the short, it removes any tension, curiosity, or mystery this short was going for, and literally just spits the answers in the most uninteresting way right back at you. So I hate when it kind of switched to that angle for this short. I think this short could have been so much more unsettling and creepy and interesting if they made it more of a discovery, investigative side with this guy with his eye implant, trying to figure out, like, okay, is it because of this robot eye? Am I actually just going crazy because of my accident and actually seeing things? Have these things always been around? Like an actual discovery, maybe researching and going into the company that is researching this and testing this on people. Maybe could have given us a little bit more with that, except they kind of cut the legs off this one and just have that girl just explain everything, and then it just kind of plays out, which is so disappointing. Like, to me, I think there's a couple well done jump scares. I think they're very effective because when you're in the POV of this guy, it really kind of puts you in that situation. So of course when he's like blinking or turns around and looks at something and something jumps out at him, it always kind of gave me that reaction. However, as soon as that girl shows up explaining what's going on, he just keeps seeing things and seeing these people show up in his home. So it just gets to that point where it feels so repetitive, where he's just turning corners, looking places, and people are jumping out at him until they start actually physically interacting with him and then end up killing him at the end. So, despite some of these interesting concepts, I feel like it really fails to do anything interesting with them. Almost like they didn't realize the really cool setup and premise that they had. So I enjoy the setup and premise. I enjoy that first like 25% of it, but the rest kind of go off the rails for me. So I think for my rating for this one, I'm going to give it that half a point. So we are at half a point for VHS 2 so far. The next short is A Ride in the Park, directed by Eduardo Sanchez and Greg Hale. A bike rider who is wearing a helmet camera goes through a state park and is bitten by a zombified woman. He ends up leading a gruesome zombie invasion at a children's birthday party. Now, this short was definitely one of those shorts that really stood out to me, really stuck with me, got me thinking about it long after I had finished the movie. So definitely one of my favorite ones here. I really love the setup of this being a found footage horror zombie short story here, and I love how it gets you right into the zombie action, and having a camera attached to someone who is now bit and is starting to get infected and going through that zombie transition period. So basically the guy's on his bike taking a little trip, gets off the call with his girlfriend, and then already the zombies are right there as he's checking up on this woman, and then gets bit by this woman because he has no idea what's going on, and we get right into that that zombie stuff that I really enjoy here. And to me, I'm not sure if there's ever really been a found footage zombie movie or show. Sure, I'm sure there's segments in some of these zombie medias where they use kind of that found footage angle, but the whole thing being found footage, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if there's something like that. At least I haven't seen something like that before. So I really enjoyed this short going for that angle. Not that the found footage kind of changes up the formula all that much, but to me, it kind of gives me that unique perspective on such an oversaturated market, which is the zombie genre. And I think found footage works so well in this because it literally puts you right into that zombie action, that apocalypse vibe, and attaching a camera to a zombie who we were following as a human is a great way to kind of showcase this and provide this zombie carnage to us. So to me, I really love how they've brought in found footage to a zombie movie here. I really do think a full-on found footage zombie movie or show would work really, really well. One, because again, it kind of puts you right into the action. Like in this short, makes you feel like you're in the woods running away and at this birthday party running away. Like it puts you right in there. And I also think found footage would work in a zombie movie because it would kind of make sense for people to be recording and documenting this apocalypse scenario. So I think it justifies a found footage kind of angle to it. And on top of its unique kind of showcasing of a familiar premise, I think this one also has some pretty gnarly and amazing practical effects and zombie gore and carnage. I really never knew how disturbing and disgusting it would be to hear a zombie devour somebody, rip open their stomach and start eating their guts and everything. To me, this short almost felt like an ASMR version of a zombie apocalypse because it really elevates it a little bit by giving you that zombie's direct perspective and getting that camera so close to the zombie that you can hear everything. So I think the sound design is definitely a big standout in this and kind of helps to elevate it, especially in some of those scenes when the zombies are just eating people, ripping people apart. You really hear it, you really feel like you're in it. So I really enjoy that part to this short. And I think this one also kind of elevates its premise and intensity and carnage that it's going for. As soon as we get to see the angle from the kid's birthday party, you're like, oh shit, like stuff is about to go down. And just putting kids in a peril situation always elevates things, especially at this birthday party and in this park on this nice day. And as all the zombies just go running in there and destroy all the parents, it is a fantastic scene that is a perfect culmination kind of leading to this short story climax that I really enjoy here. And I also like when simple zombie stories like this can kind of introduce something new or slightly different. I feel like we've seen everything zombie stuff related before, so this twist isn't really something new, but I still appreciate how they go for it. And with our main character that we were following that is now turned into a zombie, he gets a call from his girlfriend at the end, and it almost like taps into something in his zombified state where they have a bit of a conscience or maybe still tied to their past self in some way, or maybe the infection is still new enough where they're still holding on to a bit of that humanity, because he gets this call from his girlfriend, almost recognizes and realizes what he has just done and shoots himself in the head, and then that's how the short ends. So I enjoy that because it introduces something like a little bit more, since there wasn't a whole lot of story or plot to this short film, but they introduce something cool at the end. Tons of great zombie carnage and gore, and offers that unique kind of perspective in a zombie media kind of thing like this. So really, really enjoy this one. I'm going to go for my rating 1 point for this one. So we are at 1.5 points so far. Next, we are going to be discussing Safe Haven, which was directed by, oh god, hopefully I don't mess this up, but Timo Tahajanto and Gareth Evans. I am so sorry, Mr. Timo. I did my best on that one. A documentary crew infiltrates an Indonesian cult under the premise of exploring beliefs, only for the cult's rituals to devolve into mass suicide, demonic possessions, and apocalyptic horror. And so far for me, since this is my third VHS movie that I've seen out of the 3 so far, I really enjoy how this one feels so unique and so different than a lot of these segments do so far, where we actually get to follow this documentary crew instead of just random people holding a camera that kind of get involved in some shit. I like the switch up of them going with this documentary crew, going in and discovering something, recording something to discover this cult, this religion that they got going on, to investigate it a little bit. So they go in there with the impression of doing something and then discover something. So I just like when you introduce a documentary kind of style crew, you get a bunch of different camera angles, more characters, and there's more of that discovery side, which this short definitely goes for. So I kind of enjoyed that perspective and that unique kind of setup for these VHS movies so far. And even though they don't hide that this cult or religious group is probably up to some shady shit, you're sure something's up with them, but you're not sure how it's going to play out, when it's going to play out, or when things are going to start getting really bad for our characters. So it introduces that discovery side, that mystery side that I always enjoy when horror movies go for. And I know these VHS movies obviously don't focus a lot on character work or development or these big arcs or anything, and it's very difficult to do in a short story format like this, but I do like how this one tries to do something unique and different. When you get this whole documentary crew, you could tell they're close together. One of them is shown to be a couple that is with each other, and then we find out that another group member has actually been cheating on with that girl that is engaged to one of our lead documentary characters, and he finds this out by some of their body cams as he's listening in. So like how the documentary crew and technology kind of comes and adds some drama into it here, and we find out that this girl's pregnant with the other dude's kid, so that adds a whole other layer. Like, it's not revolutionary or big character developments or anything that they go for, but since we don't really get set up with a lot of the characters, I like that they kind of make us care about the character dynamics and how this new plot point is going to kind of play out. So it's hard to do in a short story format, but I appreciate that this short kind of goes for it. And then I like how after the initial kind of setup, as we're getting to know this cult, this community, I like the discovery side where one of our camera crew members is obviously looking through everything, trying to figure out what's going on, and then they go to that room in the basement where it's all bloody. He opens it up and it just looks like this pregnancy gone wrong, with this woman laying down in this medical exam room after she looks like she just gave birth to a literal creature or demon. So it kind of hints at where things are going, but kind of also throws you right into these characters' dangerous situation. And then right from there, everything just kind of goes to shit, and this short really gets going. I really enjoy how this short introduces some just gnarly and dark elements into this one. For example, when that cult leader attacks some of our characters, attacks one guy with a camera and slits his throat, it is so up close and personal and brutal. It's just downright despicable, obviously, what he's doing, but the way they showcase it is just so violent and visceral, and you could tell immediately that this cult is up to some crazy shit. And then again from there, the whole cult just starts engaging in these suicides everywhere, trying to capture the documentary crew, and then the leader is trying to gather and set off what his main goal here was for, and everything just starts falling apart. Like when all those dudes are lined up in the room in a circle and just shoot themselves in the circle right in front of our documentary crew, that stuff was absolutely crazy, absolutely insane. And I really just appreciate how this short did not shy away from this fucked up cult-like experience and really pushes it here. I find it so creepy when they start bringing the girl who's pregnant into that birthing room that we just saw and were hinted at where things were going, and all the girls like dragging her are like laughing and screaming with the cult leader like singing and dancing behind them. It just makes the cult so like interesting, but also so unrelentlessly brutal towards our characters that I just find it so unsettling. And I love how just off the rails it gets, but still kind of keeps its somewhat little bit grounded nature of this isolated cult of the things that they could be doing. I love how wild it gets at the end, after in the birthing room, after it just explodes, and then we have that cult leader come out and his whole body explodes. And then we get to see the pregnancy room with the girl, and then all of a sudden this like horn that looks like a sword just bursts right out of her, like from the scene from Alien, the chest burster scene, except she's having this demonic pregnancy, this disturbing ass pregnancy, as she keeps trying to get up and escape, but is forced down on the table by this demonic entity. So I thought that stuff was so unsettling, so creepy. It really mixed like the Exorcist, the Conjuring, the Omen, all mixed it into kind of one horror short that I really enjoyed here. And I really do love the ending, as we get one surviving character, the guy who was cheating with the girl, as he's like driving away hysterical, and then also the final demon guy that bursted out of that lady comes charging and causes his car to crash like some wild boar or some wild bear chasing after him. And then we see him get out of the rubble of his car. We see the demonic figure on top of the car as he looks down at our character and calls him Papa. And then the camera goes black as our character is like crying but also laughing. So I love how everything kind of wraps up. I love how this one really pushes that demonic cult stuff, and I really love how this entire short culminates to such a wild third act that, again, I really do enjoy here. So for this one, we are going to go 1 point for this short. So I believe we are at 2.5 points right now. The next short we're discussing is Slumber Party Alien Abduction, directed by Jason Eisner. A group of kids at a lakeside house pull pranks and hang out with a dog-mounted camera, but things escalate when aliens begin abducting and terrorizing them at night. Now, to me, this one had kind of a interesting concept going in. I was kind of curious to see where things were going to go, but it just kind of starts off as a little weird and really poorly written, unfortunately. We follow these young group of kids kind of bullying and pranking their older group of kids, where two of them are siblings, one in the younger group, one in the older group. And at one point, some of the younger kids convince the brother of this girl to walk into the room when his older sister is like having sex with this guy, and it's just so like kind of weird and uncomfortable. Then at one point, the older kids decide to get back at them, start creeping on the kids when they're sleeping, and find one of the kids like jerking off next to the other kids sleeping, and then the older kids are filming it. Like, it's just so odd and unnecessarily sexual that I just don't find it funny. It just kind of makes me uncomfortable. So I hated how this one started off. It was not a good introduction to some of these characters, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I was hoping that, despite that, I'm like, okay, let's get to the alien stuff. Maybe that'll be, fun and interesting, and, maybe everyone will come and work together. But it doesn't really do that. They don't do anything really unique with it. However, it's kind of interesting that the aliens kind of come out of nowhere, but then once they kind of show up, I do like the visualization of them, but there's really not much else besides the aliens just chasing these screaming kids and keep getting closer and closer. Like, that's really all this short has going for it. And my biggest issue with this one is 90% of the time they have the camera strapped to the dog, which might be a kind of interesting perspective in a found footage movie and an alien abduction kind of short story here, but it's not very practical and did not play out very well. Most of the scenes are at night, and since the dog is so little close to the ground, it's really hard to see anything. Half of his ears and fur is like covering 30% of the camera, so that makes it even more difficult to see anything. So I think it was a good idea, but maybe if it was only on the dog for like a minute or two, because I did not like sitting through this entire short from this dog's perspective. So I think overall the concept of a alien invasion happening at a sleepover in a found footage style, I think on paper that sounds really good. They just don't do anything with it and give us the worst perspective possible. So there's nothing really memorable here. There's really not even much to talk about with this one. So for this short, we are going to go 0 points. So still at that 2.5 points. But lastly, let's discuss the frame narrative called Tape 49, which was directed by Simon Barrett. Private investigators Larry and Aisha search for a missing student in his house full of VHS tapes, and as they watch the tapes, reality warps, leading to a tragic and sinister reveal. Now, this does seem kind of a trend for VHS 2, where I say I like the setup, maybe the execution isn't the best, and I think that kind of fits for this frame narrative, unfortunately, where I do like the setup of the private investigators, and think it's interesting to have some characters that are literally on the hunt for something, trying to discover something, and I feel like that works really well in found footage. However, I think this frame narrative kind of struggles when it starts to feel so similar to the first frame narrative, and I get that that's kind of the point, to kind of have some connected tissue there, but it just feels so similar to where, we're not following criminals, but we're following private investigators, and they go into a home searching for someone, come across a bunch of tapes and see the TVs playing these tapes, and we're watching the tapes with them. The TVs are laid out in the exact same way. Camera angles are the exact same way of our focusing on our characters watching these tapes. There's one person watching the tapes while the other person is discovering the house, doing whatever they want to do. Like it feels way too similar and kind of took me out of it a little bit. It might feel similar to the first one, but they could still do something unique with it, but unfortunately they don't really, where they watch a tape, it cuts back, they discuss it, they see some things moving in the background in the house, one person's discovering the house, one person's watching it, so it just feels very repetitive and not so creepy, unfortunately. I think this stuff going on in the background, the character moving around in the background that we get later revealed to, is very creepy, it is very unsettling, but again, nothing that we haven't seen before, just in our previous one, the one that came out the year before. So I think it's kind of frustrating in that aspect, and I think this couple, this private investigator, isn't the smartest team, where Larry, I believe, just leaves his girl there like halfway through the movie to go get her some aspirin or something for her migraine, and then is like shocked and surprised when he comes back and finds her dead on the ground, and then starts screaming for somebody to help him, even though they're in this abandoned house and nobody is around them. So I just didn't understand that, and he doesn't do anything to help his girlfriend, save her, or go get help himself. He instead just sees a tape sitting next to her that says watch this, and then he sits there and watches it. So kind of just full of those dumb characters that just was a little goofy, a little silly to me. But I do think I kind of enjoy the ending part when we get to see the kid that they're looking for recording himself, and we were watching the videos throughout these shorts, and then he's deciding to kind of make a tape of his own and shoots himself in the face, but then kind of wakes up and is still alive, or is in this zombified kind of state, and then we see the private investigators coming into the home. So it's showing that he is literally, like, he just did this last night and is now hiding somewhere in the home. It's a little silly that the private investigators didn't hear that gunshot since they were right outside, but still, you can kind of look past it. It does something a little bit unique and different compared to our first one. And then I do find it kind of creepy and unsettling when the girlfriend wakes up, is chasing him, and then he finds the guy with his half-blown face off in the closet as he gets killed by it. So I do enjoy how it kind of plays out a little bit different than our first one, adds a little bit more lore and backstory to it, I guess, but it does feel slightly repetitive, which is a bit frustrating. So I think for this frame narrative, since again it does work as a frame narrative, since we're watching these tapes with the characters, even though they're repeating it, it does work in that aspect. So I think for this one, I'm gonna go a 0.5 point. And I would say overall, this is a mixed VHS movie, but I still think overall a fun VHS movie with a couple really great and amazing shorts filled with a frame narrative that kind of makes sense for this VHS franchise so far. So there are some more duds than the first one, and compared to Halloween, definitely, and it doesn't really feel as fresh or as new as a couple of my first experiences with this franchise, unfortunately. So I'm kind of leaving it with a mixed bag, unfortunately. So for my rating for this, we have 5 total shorts, including the frame narrative, and if we add up the points, we are going to give VHS 2 a 3 out of 5, or a 60% for VHS 2. So you guys have my thoughts here on VHS 2, breaking down each and every short and giving you guys my thoughts and opinions. So definitely down below, let me know what you think of this movie. How do you like it compared to the first VHS movie? Have you gone back to this one? Is there a short that kind of stands out to you as easily the worst one or easily the best one? I'd love to hear all your thoughts and feelings on this second VHS movie. But that's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so it does mean a lot, so thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.